Katie said that she would be here, but would be a couple minutes late, most likely, by the way. Awesome. Thanks, Jesse. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is the January meeting of Manhattan Community Board for ACES committee. We are meeting virtually with permission from the governor, and we have a short but exciting agenda tonight. We'll begin with an open session. Anyone who would like to share anything with the committee members is welcome to do so for 2 minutes. And then we have a presentation from the folks from New York Public Library about the capital repair project that's going on at the Columbus branch in our district, 742 10th Avenue. And then Iris Gerson from the DOE will be joining us again, and she's going to speak with us about what's going on with students living in temporary housing. My name is Kit, along with Alan. I'm one of the co-chairs, and we will dive right in. Are there any folks who would like to speak during the open session, either from the public or anyone who is on the board who would like to speak in any capacity? All right. We can
one
move on.
person, Kid, I'm sorry, a delayed Donna Shashoa from Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal. Hold on 1 second.
Great. Evening, Donna. Thank you for joining.
Hi, how are you guys?
I personally can't complain.
I just wanted to hop on really quickly. I saw that on the agenda item, one of them is about the Department of Education. And so I just wanted to talk about the work that we've done recently about that. Just really quickly, the Assembly member wrote a letter to the mayor on behalf of 3 schools in our district to request increased funding from City Hall for these schools, students, to get them the help they need. So we are still fighting for this additional funding, but I just wanted to say that that is a priority of ours and we are working on it. Thank
Awesome.
you.
We appreciate the update. And if you're still here when Iris shares her update, if you have any questions, we'll open it up to everybody after folks on the committee have had a chance to ask theirs.
Great. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Any other folks would like to speak during the open session? Last time there was a head fake, so I'll give it like 2 more seconds. All right, then we're gonna shift gears and hand it over to the team from New York Public Library.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I see that my colleague Liana Spooner also joined with my name, but my name is Frances Ross. I'm the manager for government and community affairs. I wanted to begin by discussing the library's goals for this fiscal year, then pivot to our capital projects in the district for the both branches in your district. And then I'll give it away to Liana to talk a little bit about Columbus's programs. So to begin, as you may have seen from our budget priorities submitted in this past fall, the library is very much focused in getting patrons back into our libraries, into our branches, participating in-person programs. We do realize that there is still a strong need for online programming, so we are continuing to keep that offer for our patrons, making sure that we're balancing our capacity, but we're also really focused on teens and children. We know that while a lot of us act like we're still not in a pandemic, it's still very much happening. We are still feeling the need, especially in our teens, the education gaps that emerged from the pandemic. So as a library, we're trying to think how we can step in to provide valuable resources to teens and children. So as you may have seen, we kicked off our Teens 360 initiative. Our goal is to expand that. We have 17 centers right now, are the flagship center being at the Stavros Niarchos Library, formerly the Midtown Library. And we're really just trying to expand after school programming for teens and children, having access to technology, so podcasting, anything that they can would like or need, including tutoring. This is our vision for teen centers. So the mayor did give us funding, give all 3 library systems funding to expand teen centers. So we're really focused on pushing that this fiscal year. But we're also seeing how we can provide resources to the Department of Education through our Centers for Educators, where we really created curriculum that teachers and students can come to our branches and make use of that. So a lot of our outreach has been to that, to continue that effort. But we're also, again, our focus as a library is to continue funding our collections and making sure that we have both a strong digital and archival presence with our collections. I'm going to kind of address the PEG that we've all been talking about. We want to make sure that in the spring, we're really focused on making sure that we don't have significant cuts. I mean, our budget priorities have always been to make sure that the city restores funding fully to libraries, but also our goal is to have the city give us baseline funding for our capital projects. So Muhlenberg, just to pivot to our capital needs, Muhlenberg is set to open, complete all construction fall of 2023. So it will join a slew of branches that will reopen in the fall that have undergone major capital projects. So we'll make sure to keep you up to date as we move forward in the spring and summer with more definitive opening dates. For Columbus, we have the roof project that has been quite a journey for us. So we initially thought we could do fix the roof through a facilities project, but we recently conducted a structural assessment where our engineers determined that the roof is best addressed as a comprehensive project where we fix issues in the envelope of the building, the parapet. So right now, we're looking at a cost of $8 million to fully and comprehensively address the issues that Columbus will be undergoing. As a quick update, we will start as a temporary fix. To clarify, we do not have the $8 million right now, so we're in conversations with the city to gather those funds as the structural assessment was completed recently. So we want to make sure that we continue to, as efficiently as possible, get that situated so there are no program disruptions. So starting tomorrow, we will begin the installation of a steel mesh to mitigate any impact that the Columbus branch may experience. But I'm going to pivot to Liana to provide more information on services and programs that may be impacted by the installation of this mesh steel.
So good evening, everybody. My name is Liana Spooner, and I'm the manager at Columbus Library. Hope that most of you have had a chance to stop in, and if you haven't, please feel free to. We do have programs for all ages. We have programs for adults, we have young adults, and we have children. For young adults, we have art programs. We do that every Monday. We just had an amazing turnout a few hours ago. And we provide story time. We have open play 3 times a week. We have story time once a week. We do baby lapsing, and we welcome a host of schools in the community. We also have an adult book discussion, and we also work with the senior citizen centers that are in the neighborhood as well. And we will be starting, this month, we'll be starting a new book discussion with them as well. We also do a host of high schools that are in the neighborhood, and we make sure that we do a lot of programming, and we do as much as possible to meet the needs of the community. So with the roof, the only thing that it did limit is that we lost one of our program spaces that we normally have. So right now, all the programming is in the community room, or we do it on the floor. We used to have a smaller program room when we did smaller events, and hopefully once the ceiling is restored, we'll bring that back. But we have definitely seen an uptick in patrons. We also host movie nights twice a week. So we have movies on Thursdays and Fridays. And we also have a writer circle that meets here twice a month. So we are definitely in the community. We're excited. The community is always changing, and we really are excited about the impact that we are making. We also had an NYIC event December 12th. We had a major event, and we gave out a lot of different resources to the community, and we look forward to hosting more programs in the future. Thank you.
I will open the floor for questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that presentation. Usually we do questions from the committee and then we open it up to folks from the public to see if they have any questions. Does anyone have a question? Go ahead, Leslie.
Thank you, Kit. I don't really have a question as much as I want to say thank you, guys. I'm a library geek. So I think your library is one of the best. And I go around, I have a 10-year-old now. And I just want to tell you guys, we've been going to that library when she was little for those read-alongs, and we're still friends with people she met when she was like literally a toddler in your read-alongs. So thank you so much. I really think you guys do like a smash up job. It's such a great library, and the youth programs are so important. And also, as Jesse knows, because we do budget task force, we have been advocating for the capital project improvements on your library for a very long time. So if there's any programs or even capital improvements, I know those are two different things, that specifically that you want us to advocate for, please let us know. Because this board is a big proponent of libraries, and especially the one right down the block. So thank you, guys.
I appreciate your kind words, and make sure that when you see me, you say hello, right? So, thank you.
Jesse?
I'll defer to anybody else that wants to speak from the committee. But if not, I do have, oh, there we go. Good. Go for it, Aurora. You're on mute, just so you know.
Sorry, I was just going to echo what was already said. I've actually been going to your library for the last 35 years, for as long as I've been alive. So I'm very well familiar with it, and you guys have had an excellent program for so long. So it's really nice to hear what you're coming up with and what's in the works. And I've been able to see it evolve and how it's evolved throughout the community as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
I have a question, and then Jesse, we can go to you if nobody else does. Also a huge fan of the work that you all do. I went to New York Public Library in my neighborhood when I was a kid, and we took our now 5-year-old to Muhlenberg before the renovations, and we're excited to bring now a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old back when it reopens in the fall. We have seen in our district a huge increase in the office space being occupied by massive tech companies. And I'm just curious, some more than others have been interested in getting really involved with the community. Google stands out as one that's been very engaged and in various ways tried to be a value add. Have you all organizationally interacted at all with some of these tech companies and talked about some of the ways that you're trying to sort of update what the library offers, especially to young people?
In terms of technology, just to clarify, technology services or space, or both, or offering
Anything and everything, space, monetary donations, access to their software, maybe they would give you Chromebooks, anything that has been discussed, if there have been discussions.
Right, we do have, as part of our IT infrastructure goals, we are aiming to make sure that all of our branches, have up-to-date PCs, laptops accessible to teens. I know right now some of our branches share laptops with teens and adults. We're trying to really make sure that those are separate. But in terms of programs or tech programs, we do try to keep up with the latest in terms of offering coding classes, different levels. You'll see if you look through our programs page, like coding 1, coding 2, and really trying to expand what we offer at the Stavros Niarchos Library. The Stavros Niarchos Library has state-of-the-art technology for teens, from, like I said, coding to podcasting. There's even classes for them to learn how to use different programming for creating music, editing. So our goal is to expand that through our teen centers. Now we've been approached. We worked with Google and Best Buy to kick off our Teens 360. We have been collaborating them to expand infrastructure in terms of what is accessible, but in terms of programming, we are continually adding that for teens and also for adults. So a lot of career services, a lot of training, trying to be partners with the city and expanding skills, building skills for adults who are interested in learning new technology and programming. And we also partner with a few electeds on doing tech sessions for seniors as well, who are interested in learning. So making sure we're really thinking about all patrons. Although we are focusing on teens and children this year, we still have our tech center housed at Stavros Niarchos. So if there's ever a community event or program focused on tech, we do have a whole department, a tech center devoted to that, to bring information to patrons. So that's definitely one of the things that we're building on.
Thanks. Maria, I saw your hand go up as well.
Yeah, just a quick question about, I'm curious, thinking about the population that lives at the Skyline across the street from the library. I'm just curious if a lot of more migrants and families from the shelter have been coming.
Right. So as you know, the library does not collect personal information for our patrons. So we can't give you a number, but we have been working with the Department of Education, with the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, and with other community-based organizations to
Can I ask sorry to cut you off. Let me ask a more specific question. Are you seeing an increase in the Spanish-speaking population at your location?
I cannot give you a quantity. I'm going to give you a narrative. Our library managers have been communicating to us that they have seen influx of families in their neighborhoods who are coming to the library and who do speak Spanish. But with our data team, we have tried to figure out how can we gather that information in a more concrete, quantitative way. But we have partnered with a lot of the New York Immigration Coalition, as Liana mentioned, working, I think more a targeted way that we've been doing is we've been communicating and working with District 2, the District 2 superintendent, to actually go into the schools where they're telling us they have 100 new families in the school. So we're using our librarians who do school outreach to go in, give families kind of an orientation of what New York public libraries offer for a lot of these new migrant families that are coming from South America and Central America. A library system like ours does not exist. So it's really going into the schools, giving them a primer of what you can find, and then giving them opportunity for those families who do not have a place to stay right now and are at shelters, letting them know that there's another option for them to bring in their children, especially for after school help and support. But that's something that we're trying to do. Our latest, we've created welcome kits. We've sent them, distributed them out to our branches. So they've received welcome kits that have information in Spanish and English about all our services and programming. And it also includes, kind of a welcome to New York. Here are the services available to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wendy?
Thanks so much for coming. When you talked about some of the trainings that are available, which sounding amazing, and I love that they have such a wide range, are most of those trainings organized and developed by the libraries themselves, or do you have a lot of outside organizations who are coming in and leading those trainings?
For our tech programming, a lot of it is developed by our tech center. So these are classes taught, conducted by our staff. But we do have partnerships, of course, depending on mostly on like early literacy. We do have a lot of partnerships with outside of organizations. But our programs page or library main page, if you filter through your branch, you can find a lot of that tech information available. But there's also, if you look at Tech Center, what our Tech Center, our offerings also available on there.
Great, thanks.
I think Sabrina is the only other hand I see up. And so after Sabrina, we'll go to Jesse unless someone else has a question.
Thank you. I just actually have a question. I know that in this branch, you guys don't offer ESL, English as a second language, but I was wondering if you have that information available or handy, which branch does offer it. I think the last time I checked was only Staten Island. Is this correct?
No. We have a slew of different branches that offer it. But I can follow up with you directly if you can put your information, or I can follow up with Jesse to give where that information lives. I know
That'd be
that
great. Just to have that resource on hand. It's good, especially since we have in the community a lot of immigrants' families who don't speak English. So that's a good resource to have.
Yeah. So I'll make sure to get you the most up-to-date list and link where it exists. I know I just had a conversation with someone because it's not the easiest to find. So
no, that's what I was asking, because I wanted to, because I know in the past the library is an excellent resource, but not all of them offer. In my understanding at the beginning, when I told somebody, hey, you should look it up at the library, one of the new arrival families, and then I actually Googled myself, I was like, oh, not all of them offer them. So ESL is it's the way of learning English. So
yeah, the good thing though is that a lot of the ESL classes we've also kept online, so folks are not limited, or patrons are not limited to just.
The thing is that many of these families don't even have or don't have access. So it's just one person in the family who has like a smartphone or has a tablet. So it's and now that the world's opening again, so I think in-person classes is a good option to have.
They're also welcome to come to the nearest branch and check out a laptop.
That's right. That's a good. Okay, they see that's something to think about. Okay, that's right.
There's also Wi-Fi available. We're working this year to make sure it's high speed, because we've gotten a lot of comments from our teens about high-speed internet. So we're making sure all our branches have high-speed internet. Wi-Fi available.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you two do want to follow up, the best way is through Jesse. Part of his airtight approach to Zoom security is we do not have a chat function. So just shoot him a quick email and he can put you in touch with anyone that makes sense.
Got it.
We have two more hands. We'll go to back to Aurora and then back to Wendy.
So you just mentioned your teens, and I wanted to just ask about teen programming actually for the summer. I know we're in January, but the summer feels really close when you're a parent and you start planning in advance. And you were talking about like these podcasting, like workshops and stuff, and that could be something that could be really fun for them to do and get really motivated. I know like my kid did it during the pandemic summer to do, and maybe like having Google or somebody come in and try to fund some of that. Have we ever, I think that somebody touched on that, but I don't know if I heard it directly, like any answer directly. Sorry, that wasn't very clear.
Yeah, so I mentioned that we do have podcasting programs, and I mentioned our flagship teen center at the Stavros Niarchos Library. that offers has two dedicated podcast rooms, one for adults and one for teens, for them to use. But I believe some of the branches our teen centers, or branches that have teen centers, have podcasting as well. And I can give you a list of all of our teen centers. The most recently open would be the Bloomingdale branch will have its own teen center. So just to, context on how we select our teen centers, it's a combination of space, funding, to determine where our next teen center will be located. But podcasting classes are available.
I think it's more like in just like something for this specific community for a pending summer, especially with the families that we've just invited into our community and just welcomed here. So just something to think about for, they're going to have this 6-7 weeks off, and then especially that gap between 11 and 14, there's not a lot going on. Maybe the library could be a resource.
That sounds like a good idea. And Liana, do you want to follow up, Liana?
Well, sorry. So the podcasting, that is great. We do see a bunch of teens during the summer, which we always welcome, and especially the teen librarian. She does develop different programs to needs, and that's how we started the artistic art program. And that one, like I said, like every Monday we'll be doing that at 3:30. She's also working with a book club, and she's also right before we closed for the pandemic, she had an anime club, which the kids really love, and also working on doing different gaming with the teens as well. So podcast is definitely a great idea, and we're always looking for new ways to connect to the teens. Because we realize that we get a good crowd and then they tell their friends. Because even today we had our art program, and it went from, it used to be a small program, and now we had a great turnout, but that's how the excitement spread. Even a few teens brought their mother, and they wanted to see what it was about because they were so excited. So podcast, definitely, I took that as a note. So just give us a little time, but definitely a great idea.
Yeah, whatever you have going on. Like, it doesn't have to be podcasting, but just something to think about for the summer.
Right, and also we like to make that connection. We had on Friday, we had 3 groups of young adults come from Manhattan Bridges, and a lot of times that was their first time having a library card. We had one group, it was 35 kids, and then the next 25, and then we had a smaller group, 15. They all came on Friday, and then what I was excited about is some of them came back today. They got their first library cards, and then they were here today. So we're excited. And thank you for your ideas.
Thank you so much for sharing.
All right, we're going to go back to Wendy, and then we'll go to Charlie, then we'll go to Jesse. We'll check in with folks from the public and see if anyone has questions. But our next presenter is also here. So we'll try to wrap up this agenda item when we can. Wendy, did you still have a question, or you're good?
I'm all set now. Thanks.
Cool. Charlie, all you.
My question is really brief, and it's more as a patron than a community board member, but I'm just curious if the Dropbox is going to be opened up on the street level, because I think maybe since COVID, it's been locked. Just curious if there are any plans for that to return.
Are you talking about the outside Dropbox to return books?
Yeah.
So the Dropbox is always open once we're closed. So the minute, right, so it's always been open. So when we're open to the public, we have an indoor book drop, or you could return your books to the desk. And once we're closed, the minute that we're closed, like let's say it's 7:02 now, that Dropbox is open.
Got it. Thanks for clarifying. I guess I often have a stroller and don't want to go up the steps, so it's good to know.
No problem.
I'm coming off hours.
Yes, it is open and is ready for your book.
Great.
Jesse, I think you have the last word.
Sure. I'm sorry, Francis, can you really briefly, because I know we're running into the time for our next presenter, can you go over the scope once again of the capital project that we're talking about, just the scope, And
Right.
then if you know, right, and I don't know if you said it, I apologize. Maybe I missed it when you initially presented. Does this mean one is the library closed during this project fully? I don't mean just the room below the roof, but fully. And two, can you put this in context of something like the Muhlenberg project? Like comparatively, how much was the Muhlenberg project compared to a project like this and the timeline?
Right. So just the details on the project itself for Columbus. So it's not going to be at the level of Muhlenberg, which is like an intensive entire renovation, but we're thinking about here, as you know, we started with addressing the issues with the roof, which we thought could be done through facilities because we would kind of skip all the delays and the entire process that comes with addressing it as a capital project. However, when our structural engineer firm came to look at the roof, they determined that it would be best addressed. Through looking and renovating at the entire envelope of the building and the parapet. So now we're not only talking about the roof, we're talking about the envelope and the parapet. Now, as Liana mentioned, there are still ongoing issues. We do have leaks happening. So since we switched this project that we thought could be a facilities project to now a capital project, it's going to take a bit of time to go through OMB and DDC to get all the required approvals and licenses. So our temporary solution is to install the steel mesh starting tomorrow so that we can, while we try to get all the funding, which is $8 million right now, that's the estimated cost that we have from the firm that will cost to fix the roof, including the parapet. Our temporary solution is the structural mesh.
And I'm sorry, but did you say that? But once once you get the capital funding for the project, is the library closed?
I believe so. Yes.
And
we don't have those details right now because we're so early on. We just got the assessment. You know, we were really confident that we could do it as a facilities project. That has since changed. So that assessment really kicked off our conversations with, DDC and OMB. And we included that actually to OMB as a need for this fiscal year in our memo to them. We included the $8 million for Columbus. So we're at an early stage. So I cannot say with confidence. However, we're having a meeting with our capital team, and I can definitely ask if there is at this point an estimate of, well, one, is this going to be a project where we'll need to close the branch? And two, what are we looking at in terms of timeline? I do not think, but I'm not going to backtrack because I'm
just going to put some context around this and I hate to be the fly in the ointment. All right. And we have been advocating as a board for this branch on this particular project, the roof, at the time, the roof project. I don't know, 8 years, 6 years, something along those lines, when it was just the roof project, budgeted out for $800,000 to be repaired. Liana, I sat with your predecessor, I guess 3 predecessors ago at this point, maybe. And when we talked about this, and we brought this to the library's attention, and we brought this to elected officials' attention, and it didn't get funded then. And now we are, 8 years later and $8 million. And so and 2 years, was it last year? It was promised that, because we're putting it into the emergency repair facilities program, that's going to speed it up and get it all resolved. We've lost a year, right? Basically. And all of those delays that come with doing a normal capital project. And I will say, if we had someone had scratched the surface of the project, in my opinion, right? If you scratch the surface of the project 8 years ago, I don't know if we would be in the exact same position now, but I feel like maybe we would probably have mitigated some of the extent of the damage that's now being as a result of it just sitting around for another, 8 years or so. And so I think it's just, I will just express frustration from my office. I can't speak for the committee for here, but for a board that has been attempting to advocate for this specific branch for almost nearly a decade, and every year we get told about how important Muhlenberg is and how the HVAC system in Muhlenberg needs another $200,000 or another $300,000, or the doors at Muhlenberg need to be paid for, when we're sitting there with a branch that is now at an $8 million capital project, which is it's a lot of money. And so I'll just express that, and I'll just say this to the committee. I think, this is we have always been on record in terms of, at least at our statement of district needs for these branches. But I think we're in a new phase here with this project. And at some point, I think it's good to get us on kind of reconfirm and maybe with this new information, put out something in writing about what we're in support of here for this particular branch. Because I think we have, for the longest time, we have sort of we've taken our foot off the gas on this because we were told it was being taken care of through facilities.
Right. No, thank you, Jesse, for that. So as a very recent employee of the New York Public Library, I did look through the archive. So I understand, I appreciate as someone who's worked in city government, your persistence. So it's internally, as a new manager for the government affairs team, to unravel what has occurred. I know what you're speaking of, the facilities occurred in October 2021, where we were told that it would be best to expedite the project as an emergency facilities procurement. Then there was an evaluation that determined that it would not be possible. So right now, our priority as our library is to make sure that we do get this addressed. As like I said before, our priority is to get patrons back in our library. And the last thing we want to do is to have the only 2 libraries in your district closed. So we want to make sure that as soon as we wrap up Muhlenberg, we are able to address Columbus. So right now, I think the last thing we want to do is leave the district without 2 branches. So I think this is kind of our internal assessment of what we're how we want to manage capital, the capital projects in these 2 districts. But I'll make sure to keep you updated. I can always be reached by email, by phone. I do not shy away from anyone. So if I'll be sure to be transparent and honest with this entire process. I know that the capital project process in this city is not the most transparent, not the most easy, but we'll make sure to communicate as we move on with this project.
Thank you for that. Katie, is your question something that could potentially hold until new business? I want to be respectful of Iris from the DOE's time, knowing that it's even more scarce than usual.
Yes, I guess I was just going to follow up to what Jesse said and suggest that we write a letter about this, just sort of summarizing the history, thanking this presentation tonight, but saying, I think we should bring our attention to the fact that something needs to be done, sort of thing. That's all.
Cool. Let's circle back to that after the DOE presentation. Seeing no more hands, anyone from the public have a question for the folks from New York Public Library before we close out this agenda item? Going once. Going twice.
Kit, if we're going to write a letter about this, I'm sorry. If we're going to write a letter about this, should we not? I mean, I would second Katie's motion if that's a motion. I don't know, unless you want to save the letter writing portion for later.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, is I want to save it for later because Iris from the DOE is here now.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. As many folks from the committee said, we deeply appreciate the work that your team does. The public library system in the city is a tremendous asset. We know you all work really hard, so we look forward to staying in touch and hearing how both projects progress. Thanks for your presentation tonight.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Iris, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. We know that there's been an uptick on top of an already massive workload, so appreciate you prioritizing being here. Iris has been shared a list of questions that a group of folks focused on education for the committee helped to develop, and is going to give us an update on students in temporary housing and anything else that she would like to share. Iris, is it helpful for me to tick off those questions for everybody, or do you just want to sort of give your oh, I think you're on mute.
Whatever works for you is fine. I have a list of questions on my phone.
I think less of me talking is always what everyone prefers, so I'm just going to turn it over to you.
Okay, and feel free to ask questions as I speak. Your first question was how many students are there who live in temporary housing in Manhattan? So about a week ago, there was 1,480. I'm sure that number has changed. Just like you sent me all of your schools and how many kids you have in each school, I can guarantee that's incorrect. I can guarantee that the numbers are higher.
Iris, your mic is a little fuzzy. Is there a way to make it louder?
I'm now up to 100. Can you hear me now? It's better? Okay. All right. I can't tell you how many STH kids are in every school because it changes every day. And I have to tell you, if I've been in my office for more than an hour on any given day, it's a lot because I run from shelter to shelter to shelter. I just had 3 shelters open in the last 2 weeks, right before Christmas. And so I'm working very hard to get those children registered. And as you know, the Stewart, which was initially a DHS shelter run by Acacia, is now a HERC. Do you all know what a HERC is? Okay. Anybody not know what a HERC is?
I think it's probably healthy to explain what it is.
Thank you.
It's a humanitarian effort to reunite families who are living in the shelter with anybody in the United States, friends, family, anywhere. And it's run by Health and Hospitals Corporation. And it's very, very big. We have the Row Hotel on 44th Street, and I think I have 1,100 people there. The Stewart Hotel is new. It's also a HERC. They're still taking in families. They've taken over the whole hotel. And I think that's also going to have 1,100 or 1,200 people in the facility. In addition to this, there are the DHS shelters that have opened. They open, the buses come up, and they open up shelters. They just opened, I was so grateful. They just opened a shelter in Long Island City. I was so glad it wasn't Manhattan. Our schools are swamped. PS 51, PS 111, PS 33, PS 11 probably have the most children. This is what we started doing. When families came into shelter, and this happened in July and August at the Skyline, I know you all know the Skyline, and then moved out. And most of the shelters are located 44th, 45th, 46th, 47th Street. These little hotels are maintaining asylum families. So we started with the schools I just mentioned, and then we used other District 2 schools, but our first priority was bilingual classes. So we moved from District 2 to District 3 to District 4, maxed out all of the bilingual programs, brought the families back to 2, and now they're being enrolled in monolingual schools. What I find interesting is, although we may think the best thing for the children is a bilingual program, some of the families don't want to travel for that. They want their children very close to home. And so there was a pushback to keep them in the district. And I register children every single day. So the numbers I give you today are definitely going to be different tomorrow. I have 300 kids at the Stewart to register. Okay, so that's as far as registering. Maybe the largest schools. In regards to under enrollment, I would say nobody's under enrolled anymore. If you have more than 6 STH children in your school, you're entitled to more funding through federal program. So I don't think that money is necessarily the issue. Okay. In terms of being over enrolled, I don't know exactly what you mean. I mean, we have to be very respectful and we have a union. So we don't put too many children. If a class calls for 30 kids, there'll be 30 kids. It's not 31, it's not 32, it's 30. Every principal subscribes to the number of children. Let's talk about the shelters for a moment. Most of the shelters are run by the National Guard. There are a couple of vendors in some of the shelters. I know you know the Skyline, it has Acacia, and the Marcel is also Acacia. I've got Good Samaritan. I've got about 4 or 5 different vendors in the shelter. When you have a vendor, that means you have a staff. You have case managers. You have a housing specialist. You may have a social work supervisor. But the shelters that are run by the National Guard have nobody but the National Guard. If you're going to ask about services in the shelter, right now there aren't very many, except what we can come up with to offer, like SL class at the Skyline. And I'm trying for one at the Marcel. As soon as there's a staff on board, we can start to do more things. Okay, what do we need? We always need clothing, we always need shoes, we always need sneakers, we always need winter coats. What I'm finding now is we need backpacks, which is ironic because we always had an excess of backpacks. But with the new children coming in, they don't have backpacks, they don't have school supplies. Now, the schools have school supplies. The schools have Title I funding, and they've always ordered extra school supplies to give out to kids, but they don't have the backpacks and winter coats. Now, we ordered 15,000 winter coats for a variety of people, from a toddler all the way up to an adult man. And we distributed them. They were all new coats through the shelters. That doesn't mean everybody got a coat. So if you have a preference for school, you might want to ask the school how you can help. They do all kinds of drives. We're doing on the 28th of January at the Shed, not the Shed, in the theater this time. We're going to have another open house for families living in shelters. And that will involve not just giving out goods, but having health there, dental there, early intervention there, perhaps Head Start. We're coming up now with a list of things that we think people might be interested in, might be motivated to come from. What else? The biggest challenges. Okay. We were told that we could hire 100 shelter-based community coordinators. All right, this got delayed. I have finished interviewing and I'm waiting to onboard staff. I have been given 13 positions. Out of the 13, I've been able to onboard 4 people thus far. And these 4 people, instead of being able to place them at a shelter and start to service families, I call them my SWAT team, and we go into shelters and register children. Everybody I've hired has been bilingual, and I have to get the kids in school before I can start servicing a shelter. I will have bigger shelters, 2 people, in the smaller shelters, 1 person, but we're really, the shelters are not set up yet. After school is really important. It suddenly occurred to me, wouldn't it be this is some ideas that I've had in the last 24 hours. ESL classes for children after school. What about tutoring in the shelters? Wouldn't that be a good idea? Especially for these kids who are in monolingual classes that are holding on with their fingernails. Now, children are resilient and they learn really quickly. And in as much as you're throwing a kid into the fire and maybe you have one person that speaks Spanish, they will learn English. The families also need to learn English. I have just been given a device this week. It's $150 and it converts whatever into whatever language you want. Now, I'm not bilingual. I will use it for Spanish, but wouldn't it be nice if all the schools had these in the classroom so if a kid missed something, they could hear the Spanish translation? Just an idea. My families really want jobs. My families are very desperate. They want to get out of the shelter. They want to find work. They want to get some kind of status on their asylum. They like working papers. I don't know if you have any capacity to do open there on that, but that's something that I think would be wonderful. What else? All right, what advocacy can your community board provide? More bilingual teachers, more bilingual classes. That would be absolutely wonderful. 51 was the first school to develop a bilingual program, and she's got 2 classes and did it out of her own budget. The money that was given to schools, the extra money, because they had so many STH kids, and both 111 and 51 have at least 125 children. They only have 2 classes. If you can have 30 kids in the class, what about the other 90, 85? So that's something I would absolutely advocate for. Now ask me questions because I'm too tired and too burned out to come up with anything creative.
See David's hand first, and then we'll go to Maria and then Josephine.
Hi, thank you very much for what you're doing. I think it is phenomenal, and I'm trying to think of a way that I might be able to help. I haven't figured that out yet. But I have a question. It might be odd, but and I don't know if it's being done. Are these, especially these kids that are foreign, they're non-American, are they being taught civics and about America, the United States? I know that's what they did, in my great-grandparents' day. I don't know if such a thing even exists anymore, because I'm a history buff. I know that's what they did years ago. I don't know what you're doing currently, but you're doing phenomenal. And at some point, I got to figure out a way how I could help volunteer in some form or another. I haven't figured that out, but thank you.
I'm not a pedagogue. I can't tell you what's being taught in school. I can tell you what they eat. I can tell you where they sleep. But, Hudson Yards did us a favor. We have a really nice program, and they put together these goodie bags that every Friday we give out to STH kids, and it's filled with non-perishables. And I want you to know, families are even, that's my dog. They get food. They get 3 meals a day. It's not great food, but it's food. But, you get cravings for things. So these are non-perishable snacks that they bring home in a big basket, and they bring the basket back, and next Friday they get another one. So, but I'm digressing. I'm sorry. You went from civics and I went to food. Next question.
Hi, Iris.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Yes.
Always good to see you.
Maria, hi.
Hi. I know how much you do. I know what you do. I know how hard it has been. I don't want to, what's the word I'm looking for? Understate.
Don't. I don't.
Thank you. Thank you. The little things that you do are so meaningful for so many people. And sometimes people don't come back and say thank you, but
Thank you.
And
I wanted to say this. I am starting a program for unaccompanied youth who are asylum seekers. You know, we think about the families that come in, but we don't think about the teens that have come in on their own with nobody. And I have a group of navigators going into the crisis shelters in the hills to try to convince kids to come back and get a high school diploma. And that's starting in 2 weeks. That's something new.
Okay. That's good. That's wonderful. I have like 4 questions for you, Iris. You said at the Hercs, that's where the National Guards are running the site, or that's something separate altogether?
The National Guard is in Department of Homeless Services shelters where there is not a vendor. The Hercs have Health and Hospitals Corporation staff.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And my other question was, you may have said this, but I wanted to ask it more directly and like hear what you had to say. What would you say is the greatest challenge that you're facing currently?
Busing.
Busing?
Busing.
Yeah. And you mean busing in terms of getting the students to the schools that they need to get to?
Correct. You've got families that don't know their way around New York. You've got children that we've taken from District 2, let's say West 44th Street and 7th Avenue, and they have to go to 120th Street and 2nd Avenue. It's very confusing. It's a big trip. There may be a bilingual program there, but how do you get there? So busing, you know, if we could expedite busing, that would be great.
And this is just an additional question I just thought of, because I know that there's some challenges in getting kids to school, things like that. Does that mean, you know, I used to work at ACES, and so as a CPS worker, a child protective specialist, and I'm curious are a lot of the families receiving like calls? What's the word? Is there a report on many families for educational neglect or anything like that because of the challenges?
I will tell you, I personally, and I instruct my staff, we do not call ACS on these families unless we see real child abuse. And I'm talking about beating up a kid, burning a child, you know, like the stuff. But not for educational neglect. These families are so at risk for being, okay, so we will move heaven and earth not to make it an ACS case. Okay. Now, have the shelters called ACS? Absolutely. Yeah. DHS has a policy that you're not allowed to be in the room alone if you're under the age of 18. And I had a mother that went out and got food for her kids and left a 14-year-old kid in the room with an 11-year-old kid. And they called ACS on her. And I thought that was unconscionable. 1, they don't know our culture. 2, for all we know, they could leave kids at 5 years old at home and they just don't know. And I thought it was vindictive and a terrible thing to do. So I called ACS, I found out the unit, I spoke with them. I called the shelter, I called the head of DHS. And a vendor was coming in, and this woman who did the reporting was going to be the shelter director. And I made sure that she was moved out of that shelter because I can't have that. That's unconscionable. But things like that happen. There are people working in shelters that aren't necessarily nice to our population. We try to stay on top of it. If I see that happens, I let DHS know. I have not seen it at the Row or the Stewart. Those are the Hercs. But I have seen it in other facilities.
Yeah, the Row and the Stewart. And 2 more things. How many people currently work for you, excluding the 4 new hires?
No, I have 13 new hires. I have 13 new hires. I have 6 that are currently working that are community coordinators in schools. I have 3 family assistants with 3 more to hire. And I have 5 bridging the gap social workers. How many is that?
6 plus 3 plus 5. I'm not sure.
So it's 13 and 6 and 6 and 5.
13, 6 and 6 and 5. Who got that? It wasn't me. I don't know what number that is, but I wrote it down.
That's
Last
really
question.
cool. Okay.
Last question, Iris. Can you just repeat the information about the open house? What day and where?
It's going to be January 28th, and it's not at, it's at Hudson Yards. The last time we did this, the day before you did your coat drive. And remember, I wanted you to be a part of this.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have you come be a part of this. I will send you information. Please come, anybody that wants to come. You know, we take
I will
donations.
be there.
Okay.
Iris, what time?
It's January 28th and we haven't decided the time yet.
Okay.
Okay, I promise. We just had the first meeting on it today as to what we were going to do. And it's supposed to be in the theater instead of in the shed this time.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Iris.
Tamara, did you want to say something tomorrow?
Well, I did, Josephine, if you don't mind if I jump. So
course,
hi,
go
Iris,
ahead,
I'm
please.
Tamara. In addition to being a public member of this committee, my day job is actually at the shed doing civic programming. And so we organize with you. Yes, your amazing team. We had a great meeting today. I happen to be talking with Jesse. So we'll make sure that we circle back and also provide the committee with the information. We did the first resource fair with both back, I think in November, in what you're saying was our Tisch space, which is a much smaller space. It's sort of it's our normal event space that we have at the shed. But what we realized there is we had paid for a lot of interpreters to be there. It was both a community store, which was like a coat drive, clothing drive. We had health services. We provided food as well, but that we needed more space. So it will be at the shed, but it's going to be in our McCourt space, which is just the largest space that we have. That's also the plaza space, but it's totally enclosed. And so we won't have any capacity issues, so we can get a lot of people in. And we were talking to some of your colleagues today, Iris, about having to also hopefully do more collecting of things that we need. And so I made a note of what you said around backpacks. We had heard that socks was a big issue too. So we will underwear. And so I'm trying to do the best on our end, but we'll definitely follow up with the committee to send once a flyer is created. And Iris, I'm happy to follow up with you and you let me know if there's anything else that you need on our end.
No, I was only in half the meeting because I was at the steward and I was on the phone and I didn't know if he decided on a time. I'm the one that wanted to switch the day into February to give more time. So,
we can do it again in February. We can do it again. Yeah.
No,
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
So happy to hear you both working on that together. Tamara, if you need any extra hands, need some volunteers on that day, then let us know. You know, I'm sure a lot of people will be happy to volunteer.
We will. What I realized last time is that we did not have enough. It's a big need. It was great. I think we had like 500 people come last time for hours.
Let them come in a little at a time and not make a mad dash.
But what's great is we have a much bigger space now. And so I will be reaching out to all of you, anyone who can volunteer. Would be amazing. But Iris, everything that you do, I can't thank you. I can't thank you enough.
Yes, certainly say the same here. Iris, thank you so much for your decades of service. You know, I never imagined 6 years ago that this would be happening. It's just incredible what is going on.
It continues to happen. I fully expect more shelters to open.
Yes, I agree. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about the summer. Have you heard, has anyone said anything about Summer Rising? Are there going to be programs for these kids? What can we expect?
I haven't heard a word about Summer Rising. I know we'll have the Summer Youth Employment Program, but here's the rub. In order to participate in Summer Youth Employment, do you all know what that is? It's children, all right. You need to be a citizen or you need to have a green card. So I think that the higher up should take a look at this and what they can do around that, because our kids won't be able to participate. And I haven't heard a word about Summer Rising at all.
Wow. Okay. All right. Thanks so much. That's it.
Anyone else?
We're going to go to Leslie, and then we have at least one question from the attendees. And then I think and we'll go to Katie, and then I think we'll wrap. Leslie?
Hi, Iris. Thank you for coming again. Quick questions. How many backpacks do you need? What is the number? How many?
All right.
Are we talking hundreds or?
if I could get 1,000 backpacks, that would be great. If I could get 500 backpacks, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
No, I do Operation Backpack at the DOE with Volunteers of America, and we make sure that every kid living in shelter gets a completely filled backpacks with school supplies in August. I'm very snobby about my backpacks. If you're going to give me a backpack for $1.99 that's going to rip in 2 days, don't do it. So I'm just being very honest about this. I can give you a great vendor. If you have money to buy backpacks, $7 a backpack, $6 a backpack.
I was just curious. I was just curious on what the amount is, as far as mobilization, you know, and you know, if it was like, if you needed a dozen, or if you needed 100, or if you needed 1,000, like you just said, 1,000.
Or you know what? That I'm being picky. I don't want to. I went overboard. If I could get 200 backpacks, I'd be happy. Specifically for the high school kids, you know, because they need it more than anyone.
Great. Okay. So my second point is, you mentioned dual language teachers, and you know that's such a big problem as far as just, you know, whether they're available. And I know they're taking them from different countries even and bringing them over, or maybe not countries. I think it was Puerto Rico and different programs. It's difficult. We talked about, and this is not immediate, but having more dual language schools programming, because they do have some dual language public schools. Unfortunately, that was being tapered off. It's now, hopefully we can, and Kit, remember we were talking to Kelly about the superintendent about this, and this should be a letter, definitely, you know, maybe about the dual language program. But again, Iris, that's more longer term than probably your immediate need. And also you mentioned tutoring program. Do providers at the shelters, they don't provide any resources?
Yeah. If you're at the HERC, if you're at the row, or if you're at the steward, you can receive immunizations.
Okay.
Okay, I'm being realistic. There aren't services yet. And usually when we provide services, it's the DOE that contracts with the CBO to provide services in shelters. Whether you're going to do a cooking program, or you're going to do tutoring, or you're going to bring in a teacher in for homework help. But DHS hasn't given anything, no.
Okay, I was wondering, because I know each provider is a little different. I know like Homes for the Homeless, when they used to be here, and now actually back, but when they were here the first time around, they had like a whole school set up down in their shelter. Like it was like a nursery, it was childcare and nursery and not teachers, like tutors. So I didn't know if it varied from shelter to shelter.
They're planning on doing that again. They just opened the Clinton family residence. I was in there.
Is that what the new it's called? That's right. Yep.
And they were talking about doing this. You know.
Okay.
Soon.
Yeah. Okay. Those are my only. I was just curious about
But they don't have asylum seekers. There are other shelters in Manhattan that don't have asylum seekers. The Hudson, the Clinton, Children's Rescue Fund on 28th Street. Those are all regular freestanding shelters. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
Katie, you're up, and then we'll go to the member of the public.
Hey, Iris. So as you know, I agree with everybody else here. I think you do amazing work and have done it for years, and we're lucky to have you around, Iris. But I did have so just two quick questions. You mentioned earlier that in just 2 weeks, there's a new program that you're going to be rolling out that's focused on, it sounded like you said it's on unaccompanied youth. I'm sorry, say it again.
You went mute for a minute.
Oh, yeah, I think I'm having internet problems. Can you hear me now? Okay, actually, I'm going to turn my screen off and see if that helps. Okay, so I'm going to go dark for the moment. So I was asking, you said that you have that you're going to be, you said something about rolling out something extra for unaccompanied minors who are asylum seekers. Is that right?
Correct.
And is that something that is going to be happening in our district too? Are there students here who are unaccompanied youth who will be attending our high schools here?
Covenant House.
Ah, okay. All right.
There's another shelter, but I think that's District 6. And I can't tell you the location. I know you all know Covenant House, so you probably all know where it is, but the addresses are supposed to be confidential.
I understand. And I was just wondering if there's anything in connection with that new program that's getting rolled out that would be helpful for us to advocate for on your behalf.
You always advocate for my unaccompanied youth.
It's true.
Not at this moment, not at this juncture. I don't know what's going to happen with these kids. You know, I don't know how. My agenda is for them to get a high school diploma. Their agenda is to go out, get a job, get work, and be able to eat and live. So we have different kinds of agendas. I've had kids with no family come into the United States with nothing. And so it's a whole culture shock for them. And you have to let them know how important it is, because before you know it, they'll be 30 years old, uneducated, and unable to get a decent job. So basically what I have to offer them, what we need to work with, has more to do with emotional mental health and education, rather than here's a backpack or here's some money.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Fair enough. And then I guess my last question to you was, you had mentioned how helpful it could be to have tutoring or ESL classes. And I just wanted to make sure that I understood correctly. You were saying in the shelters themselves, you weren't proposing those in the schools, right? You were proposing those in the shelters.
Right. Okay. So when you're on the bus, you have to leave the school at 2:00.
Oh yeah, true. Uh-huh.
If you stay at the school for after school or for tutoring or any kind of remediation, your mother is going to have to come and pick you up.
Yeah.
If it was shelter-based, you know where the kids are. The children, I think it would create a community. I think the parents would get curious about it and want to be there too. Maybe it could even be a parent-child kind of thing. Maybe it would be fun, making that fun. I just know that the families need to learn English to be able to live in New York. And I don't see why we're not doing it. I haven't discussed this with anybody. It just came to me today.
Okay. All right. Super helpful. That was my question. All right. Thanks, Iris.
Okay. I just want to follow up on the tutoring thing, because I just wanted to say that we did a little bit of this. We tried this at Manhattan Times Square. I don't know if they're now a shelter again too.
The old Times Square? The old Times Square.
Yeah, Manhattan Times Square, yes. And JCC was the one that we partnered with to go in there. I don't think they do ESL, but one of the issues that I was finding is that a lot of these hotels did not have the space to do the tutoring. And so we were all kind of crammed in a little room, and it was just, I don't know, the Skyline certainly has the room. And maybe Iris, if you can let us know if there are any other hotels in this area that may have the space capacity. I'm happy to reach out and try to find some specific ESL organizations that might be willing to do this. Yeah, but I do know the Skyline, but that's the only one that I know that actually has the room to do it.
If you're a hotel, don't you have a conference room? Doesn't
yeah, you would think, but people would say, oh no, or there was always some reason why it couldn't happen.
To breathe, I'm going to follow up on this. There is nothing wrong with finding out where the space is. There has to be space. There has to be a dining area for families to eat. There has to be space.
I think one of the issues at the Madison Times Square is that part of it was still being used as a regular hotel. And that's why the owners there they were saying that, we could only use whatever space that they gave us. And that did not include the conference rooms and those kinds of things. So if some of these other places are, you know, these other hotels, if the entire hotel is being used as a shelter, then that shouldn't be an issue at all.
Exactly, and the entire hotel is being used as a shelter. I think hotel owners approached DHS and said, "Would you like to rent our hotel?" And they had a list of places. This is what I think that they do. I don't work for DHS. So I would think that there's got to be space in all of the facilities. Now, maybe I'm being naive. I saw the space in the Skyline. I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
I know the Marcel, and that's where the ESL class is. And they're doing some after school stuff in that room too. It's really nice. I think the Marcel has one too. The Children's Rescue Fund doesn't have. I mean, I need time to be able to look at this.
Of course.
And I need time. I need people to be in shelters every day, you know, where they can deal with families. I can't tell you, it's like running out of a burning building every day.
Right. Thank you.
I think we have one more question from Donna, who's from the Assembly Member's Office. Donna, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Hi, my name is Donna. I'm the community liaison for Assembly Member Rosenthal. First of all, thank you so much for everything that you do and for speaking with us today. First, I'm not sure if you were on earlier, but I was informing the community board that we did write to the mayor's office on behalf of 3 schools in this district to request increased funding. So our office is pushing for that right now. But I just had one quick question. So what information is the city giving you when these new kids are being placed in the shelters? Like, what are you being told and when and how fast?
All right, this is the way it goes down for me, okay? I mean, now I'm working with a lot of DHS people, so maybe somebody covering a shelter will call me up on the phone Saturday night, 9 o'clock at night. Iris, shelter's opening up tomorrow. And I'll find out from that person. Then I'll get an email 3 days later that DHS told DOE you have a new shelter, okay? I will call the PA for the shelter. Do you have children? Do you have families yet? They'll tell me yes or no, and then I go in. I go in with nothing. I don't have any information. Eventually, I will get a demographic data report. By the time I get it, I'm already having registered all the kids. So it's like completely cold. I don't know if I miss children. I know I'll have staff in there 2-3 days. We'll move on to the next shelter and then they'll call me back. We still have this. So, and also you have to understand that enrollment has a finite amount of bilingual staff. So when you've got 15 shelters and all of these shelters coming to enrollment, they're down to doing it by appointment because they can't manage anymore. All right, so I get no information.
Thank you so much.
Anything else?
Not seeing any other. Alan interrupted me with a hand. One more question.
Maybe a suggestion. Thank you, Iris. Thank you. Mimic what everybody said. It's wonderful work that you do. So I'm thinking about employment, since this comes under more federal than anything local. It might be worth just a shot, just to take a shot, reach out to either Nadler's office or to Gillibrand's office. Maybe there's some exceptions they can make for particular groups or some of these families that may have some sort of documentation, maybe already in the asylum program. It may not, considering the politics in Washington now, but I know the city has been advocating for support for these folks that have been coming up from being bussed in. So can't hurt to ask. So maybe we can do something like that. All you can do is say no, thank you, but it may be worth a shot.
I would say the majority of my families, they come in with their immigration papers. They're told that they have a hearing they have to go to. They have no idea what it's about, what's going to happen. If they're lucky to get into the navigation center and talk to somebody from Catholic Charities who's going to tell them what's going to happen at the meeting, or they go down to Federal Plaza. But I'm saying for the most part, they don't have a clue what's happening to them.
Thanks again.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna join the many thanks and just say, really appreciate you coming back, Iris, and eternal gratitude for all the work that you and your team are doing. Incredibly challenging, but also incredibly necessary. And I know that you are extremely busy, so thanks, and
Let's sign off then.
please do enjoy the rest of
Thank
your.
you for inviting me. Bye-bye.
All right. So we are into the new business section of the agenda. Katie had tried to make a motion and I cut her off. So we should definitely circle back to that. But we could also continue the conversation about this topic, and potentially, if anyone has a motion, write a letter about that as well.
Well, I love the idea of writing a letter about what some of the issues that Iris raised, but I haven't quite formulated my thought on that. So let me just circle back and do the first one proposal, which was writing a letter thanking the representatives from the library for coming this evening and giving us a helpful update. But also, I think specifically saying, that we're very aware of the fact that one library has been prioritized and gotten a lot of resources assigned to it, and that it's been 8 years that we've been raising the other library, and we would like some real information and some real commitments about it. But I also think it's important that we say in there, that we would love to be part of a discussion about what can be done without closing it down, because we certainly can't have both libraries closed, but even I don't think we ever want this one closed. I mean, especially because of where it's located and how many new families it's serving. But Jesse, tell me if I'm off base there. But anyway, so I guess that's the gist of the letter I'm proposing. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure who I'm proposing we write it to. Are we writing it and like asking Eric's help about getting funding and focus on it? Or I don't know, I would look to the rest of you to suggest as to who this letter is addressed to.
And a suggestion to take or leave, Katie, is we write it to New York Public Library and we CC our electeds. And in the letter, we could include language saying we hope that our local electeds will join us in advocating for the renovations that are needed, as well as helping to secure the funding to get the job done. I guess one question I have, and at some point someone is going to need to second this, Jesse, is like, if Muhlenberg is on track to be done by the fall, and they're pretty early stage in figuring out what has to happen at Columbus now that it's an $8 million project that's much more complex than they originally imagined, is there really a risk that both would be closed at the same time? Or is it actually like they're going to wrap up Muhlenberg, and by the time anything gets moving on Columbus, we're not really at risk of both of them being closed at the same time?
Yeah, I don't know about that risk. I don't know what the level of risk is. I think they'll probably make that a priority so that doesn't happen, honestly. Which I would really hope that doesn't include delaying Columbus on some level. But again, we've waited this long, so I don't really know. That to me isn't so. I mean, it's certainly a concern if that's ever a chance, but I think they would, move heaven and earth for that not to happen. But I just, it's been really, really difficult and frustrating about this branch and trying to advocate for it to its own owner as to getting the information about this repair has shifted and changed over the last 8 years, from including an elevator project, then all of a sudden having no record of including an elevator project to so it's just It's so just clearly not a priority. And I still have questions, honestly. I mean, every city owned piece of property has a yearly inspection, requires a yearly inspection. I don't part of me, maybe the damage that they've discovered, it was so kind of internal to the building that a yearly inspection wouldn't pick that up. But just to cut to another building that's pretty much emptied and condemned is the school, the former colored school number 4, owned by Sanitation, has got a yearly inspection. So the roof problem there was identified. So I'm not really sure why we're in this scenario. Is really, I get it. It's a spilt milk and there's nothing really we can do about it at this point, but it is extremely frustrating from a perspective of us trying to thwart this from years ago. But anyway, but that's, I don't think that both branches being closed at the same time I don't know if that's a real risk. I think that they'll make sure that doesn't happen.
Jesse, would you want us in this letter to include like an ask for a meeting, or something? Like, it sounds like you're so kind of over.
Again, I think we should, I just think we should be on, this is just a whole, we just have not, I just think we should, I don't think a meeting is necessary. I don't know what that's going to gain us. I do think just acknowledging that clearly over the last, since my time here, the Muhlenberg has been the priority. I mean, we've gotten budget requests every year from Muhlenberg, from the New York City Public Library. I mean, they're one of those agencies that have no problem telling us what they need, right? They tell us, please advocate for Muhlenberg's HVAC system, please. And we're the ones going, well, what about Columbus, right? Wasn't there a roof problem in Columbus? Wasn't there, and it just clearly just wasn't, and that's way before even the fact that they put it into the facilities program. I see Matt just raise his hand. He probably would remember better than I a little bit from his old job. But but this has always been a struggle. And so I would just want us that acknowledged and highlighted that, I don't think we needed to be here if there was more priority put early on to resolving the issue.
We're going to go to Sabrina, Maria, Alan, and then Matt.
I have like technicality questions. Just in terms of like discretionary funds, those cannot be used for capital projects, right?
Yeah, they can.
Okay, well, that could be a solution to advocate for that for our district. And because the second one is like, actually, because essentially who makes the decisions about capital projects, it goes down to OMB, right? So I would like suggest to involve them and ask if there's a way that we can ask them where is the follow-up on this, even if this project is being considered. Is there a way if we can have, the representative, the community boards on OMB in a way of connecting that with the library? Because we can ask the library, but at the end, the one that actually has the response, if this is one of the capital projects that is on the queue, it would be OMB.
Yeah, but I don't, just historically, we advocate to the agency whose money that they need to be advocating for this project too. OMB certainly holds.
So if they're not advocating, so to say that the problem is that the library is not the one who's advocating for them to have this repaired.
Well, I don't think that should be just to be clear, I don't think that should be the lead in the letter, in my opinion. Okay, again, I don't want to, I feel like I'm taking over.
No, I'm just giving you, I'm just giving technicalities because I work for OMB, and just as a way of saying how we review capital. And a lot is like, it goes to us after the agency has review, and then the final decision it's OMB in a way who, if we have the money, if we don't have the money for this year or don't. So I'm just curious to know, like, what's the process? What is not being done? Is not the agency who's been pushing for this, or it's just like, oh, there's just no funding, like kind of thing?
No, I mean, I think there's been funding for other libraries. I think I couldn't answer that question, Sabrina. I
Right.
think
That's what I'm saying. Like,
that's the mystery in
yeah.
the issue is that for whatever reasons, again, like I said, like 6-8 years ago, I'll have to go back and look at my notes as to when we first interviewed the manager. Like I said, Liana's predecessor, and it was clocked out at 800,000 at that time, and so I can't, so I wouldn't know what the inner politics of why that particular branch didn't get it then, and it could be very good reasons. I don't know, but year after year it didn't. And so but no, I mean, I think all capital always, and the road ends with OMB for sure. But and we can certainly CC them if we want to. I just think, again, the agency is the one that first advocates and says,
right. No, I agree. I'm just curious of like where is it? Is like coming from the agencies, what OMB who said there's no funding. Like, again, that's my question of where in the process it failed. And yeah, that was just a technicality question.
Yeah.
So that's say I'm not allowed to vote for this. I was just giving up information.
Understood.
Thanks, Sabrina. Maria?
My question is not really on this topic, so maybe if anybody else wants to go ahead of me who still wants to speak about this.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Alan and then Matt.
Well, the problem's may wind up to be if we wait for Muhlenberg to be finished in the fall and they don't have any delays, you run into the winter time. So that might be an issue for work startup if it's all going to be outdoor work. So maybe the sooner we try to get something cooking, and maybe we do need a meeting with somebody just to put a little pressure on them somehow, or they may need to close down if they can and get started earlier than waiting for Muhlenberg to be finished. So, if we could find out whether or not the type of work that's going to be done can be done through a winter time, it might, maybe help the agencies focus on this a little bit more. But that's.
Well, I'll be honest with you. What she said was that because of the capital being such a significant project now, they're doing this emergency roof thing, and my feeling is that's just going to kick the whole thing down the road.
Yeah, that's going to suffice for the moment.
We're not going to be seeing them starting working the winter.
So we should just go on. So we should just go on record. That's all.
I don't know. That's my opinion, but that's
Yeah, no.
Thanks, Alan. Matt?
Thanks, Kit. So just to bring up a few, just to respond to a couple of the questions and some of the discussion points. So the first thing, I don't think there's a risk in any overlap between both branches being closed between Muhlenberg and Columbus. By the time any money gets allocated to the Columbus branch, they're going to have to go through a very large design process and scoping the work, and then OMB will have to release the funds. So that's going to be on an entirely different timeline. And by the time and so I think it's actually Muhlenberg will be open well before any major capital work would happen at the Columbus branch. That being said, I think the Muhlenberg Library coming to a close is great news. Given that project, because when I was at the council, I'll give you just like a little insight. I mean, the way that the capital in the previous administration, we really want to close out projects, and Jesse's familiar with this. You want to fully fund projects, so OMB then greenlights these to give the funds necessary. You can't really just do, a couple $100,000 here, a couple $100,000 there. OMB likes to see fully funded projects before they release those funds. And Muhlenberg, when we were working on this project, was a massive undertaking as far as a renovation was concerned, which required the entire branch to close. Lots of different projects. And when these things start to go in scope, things become more expensive. And as time goes on, capital projects usually increase about 10% year over year. So I think actually there's a really good opportunity now that Muhlenberg is now ending. While it's not in our district, Jefferson Market Library has also recently reopened. That was a long-standing renovation to make that ADA compliant. That's done. I think the focus is now prime for Columbus branch, which is great. I do know that there was, I think, $300,000 that was allocated for a lift there. I'm sorry, I can't remember. Was that brought up on this presentation? I couldn't, as a project they were beginning or starting, because that would be something that separately, that was something that was allocated, I think, in the last few fiscal years. But the roof has been a major ask of the library, but it's such a big, significant amount, $500,000 or more. It was hard to cobble together the funding to get it done. But I think, as I just said, now is a great opportunity to get on the record. And I agree with the suggestion of writing a letter to the public library, CCing elected officials, including the borough president. And I would also include City Hall, and get as much of the money as we can to really jumpstart that project and fully fund it. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to fill in the gaps on some of the comments that were raised and how some of the priorities are looked like. But I think it's a great opportunity to now really focus on the Columbus branch.
Thanks, Matt. Leslie, I saw you put your hand up. After Leslie, I would love to hear a second for Katie's motion.
Well, that's what I was going to do. I was going to second Katie's motion and points for the letter, if you want, Kit, if that's the time.
Points for the letter?
Yeah, like what points we want to make for the letter.
Oh, okay. Katie, do you want to sort of re-summarize, or do you want me to do my level best too?
I welcome you to do it, Kit, and then to hear what Leslie does too. Yay, you both.
I was afraid you might say that. So I think the letter is supposed to say, we appreciate them joining us and all of the important work they do in our district and around the city. We want the New York Public Library to prioritize the Columbus branch for renovations. And we want to detail the ways in which we've advocated for that over an 8-year or whatever the number of years is timeframe, and call out that perhaps if this had been addressed more quickly, the scope of the project and the dollar number would not be what they now are. And we would also include a clause or a paragraph encouraging our representatives to join us in pushing for this to happen and working to make the necessary funding available. Leslie, what did I miss?
You exactly what you said. I was going to say exactly the same thing. I like, I don't know who's writing the letter, but
my vote's for Kit. He just said it so well.
Okay.
I'm already playing the nose game.
I think the chair should write the letter.
We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. First, we got to vote on the letter.
So like you said, Kit, I think all your points were excellent. We've been advocating for this for a while. B, the delay, their delay has resulted in the ballooning of the budget for this project, like you said. I would ask a question. We would like to know insight on how NYPL prioritizes their capital projects, specifically within a district. I want to see, I'm curious what they would come back with on that, especially considering that there were 2 capital projects in our district. Maybe we can mention again, stressing that though we do include this in our statement of district needs every single year, this letter is to call it out specifically, is to draw it out. We want specific attention on this and really to get some answers on, like Jesse said, you know, he didn't one way or the other, Muhlenberg. I don't want to pit one library versus another, but I would like insight on how they come to their decision of which one to prioritize and why. I don't know if those are all points you agree with or anyone agrees, but that's what I had, pretty much what you said, Kit.
All right. Unless there are any other suggestions for friendly amendments, I think everything Leslie said also makes sense. And Katie's nodding, so I think she does too. We can move on to the voting. All in favor of Katie's suggestion for a letter with the addition from Leslie, raise your hand or say aye. Anyone opposed? Present, not eligible? Anyone abstaining? All right, I think just with Sabrina's present, not eligible, everyone else voted yes. Does anybody want to raise their hand to actually write this thing? Or am I getting voluntold to do it?
Kit, I think you're great for doing it.
But I would never voluntold you, Kit, never.
I'm feeling pretty voluntold at the moment, so.
You summarized it so nicely, Kit.
I'll try to be choppier next time I summarize something. That's the trouble here. Maria, you had raised your hand. You had a question or something that you wanted to raise.
Yeah, I have a comment. Has anybody noticed from Sabrina's window when she's speaking, we don't hear Scooby? What's going on over there? That is not my comment, but I noticed. I was like, I usually hear your baby barking.
Oh, I know. He's entertained with my mom, so he's pretty happy.
All right. I was just thinking, I didn't mention this earlier when Iris was on, but I thought of it when she was on. I was like, oh, the event she's having, maybe it's worth having the library there at the open house too. I didn't think of that, them having a table at the event. I don't know how we get that done. I guess an email or something.
I think we were thinking about that too. I think we were going to have them last time and we just were overwhelmed, but I will take the note back.
Okay. And, oh, I was going to say, I mean, would it be worth writing a letter about expediting busing services for kids in the community? I don't know. I feel like my thought is Jesse would know better if that's actually worth doing. I don't know.
We included in the last busing letter, we specifically asked for busing for STH. That was before all of this, and they came and spoke to us and said that they were having troubles with staffing and all these other issues. And I do not believe that any of those issues have been resolved. I mean, I can't imagine that they have. So I don't really see that another letter is going to do much at this point.
Yeah, that makes sense. I forgot about that. We did do that. I don't know, just the thought that I had.
Yeah, we'll go to David Warren in a second, but if anyone has sort of territory that we haven't covered based on what Iris shared, I think we should consider writing a letter, but we've written about the busing challenge. I believe that we said something about the need for more bilingual staff after that meeting that we had with Superintendent McGuire, and he shared very similarly that was a top priority for him. We can write a letter to sort of rehash things that we've brought up in the past, but I think we're already sort of on record with the main things that we heard.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Thank you, Joseph. I forgot about that.
Looks like you made a suggestion, Katie.
Yeah. So I like the idea of writing a letter, thanking Iris for coming and making these, presenting these things. And I understand that we've heard some of it before, but I do think it would be helpful, like if we did something, about suggesting or asking for coming up with a funding source for tutoring or ESL in the shelters with asylum seekers in our district, right? That would be could be a specific suggestion, an idea. And if we have a letter about it, then that would also help us ask for, sort of keep it at the top of the heap for funding requests later. Is that right? Because I don't think we've asked for that before, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That'd definitely be new.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I'm sorry to interrupt, Katie, but I think there might have been, that's part of one of the ask for partner education, but I'm not sure. So I think it's good to know if that's into their needs. Like, is a new need that they're asking for? So it might be, but it might be not. But I fully think it's a great idea, though, because I think it's truly a need. I just don't know, because of all the pegs that they're having right now with the budget and all the savings that are happening. So would that be included? But I think the more and more we push for it, it would be a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause I think our requests, our budget requests have always circled around public schools. So they really didn't address shelter issues. So that's like a new track. That could be a new track for us.
Aurora, I see you have your hand raised.
I was just wondering if we could ask for like some cultural competency training. One of the things that I heard that was said was like the ACES reporting and that being something of concern around, you know, especially around educational neglect if kids can't get to school on time. And it's great that her staff is being directed to not do that. But what happens to the staff that doesn't know not to do that, right? And the kid who's coming in 20 times late or isn't able to get to school for 5 days in any given week for whatever reason. So I wonder if there could be an ask for cultural competency around our new neighbors.
David, I
Yeah,
was under the assumption that you were going to talk about something different is the only reason why I haven't gone to you. Did you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's directly with this, but I want to volunteer for the 28th, but I'm going to need a lot of direction because I've never done this before. Maybe when they at the shed, so they tell us what to do, because I'd love to help out. The other thing is, years ago, Volunteers of America used to give out knapsacks to kids. I mean, years ago, maybe 10 years ago. I don't know if they still are. Does anyone have contact with the Volunteers of America to?
David, Iris mentioned that she actually heads up for the DOE, the Operation Backpack program, and she works with Volunteers of America.
Oh, she does. Okay, because she's looking for more knapsacks. I'm trying to think of ways in my, because I'm green at this to help with this. But I definitely, if tomorrow maybe, I don't know, are you heading up the event at the shed? Maybe you can give us direction on what to do, where we're needed. I don't speak Spanish, but where we're needed and all that stuff. Because this is a great thing.
No, I definitely will. So let me follow up because, for instance, the event is on the 28th, but on the 27th, we have a lot to sort. So what I learned from the last time was things just got sort of dropped off at the shed and we were completely overwhelmed with my team kind of figuring out how to separate coats from like male coats, children's stuff. So we'll also need help just on the day before, just getting like literally sorting through everything. So I don't know if it makes what I could do is as I get information, I can make sure that Alan, Kit, Jesse has it. And then will y'all help spread it out to everyone? And I can maybe say, these are volunteer times and the types of roles. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because the sooner I know, especially about the 27th, I can put in for a day off from my work. And then I could, however whatever you think it's more valuable, I will be there or both days. I mean, because this is tremendous. We really should, this is a personal, we really should be helping these, for lack of an old-fashioned refugee children. We really should be helping them. Now is the time to do what we can for them. So I have strong feelings that we should. So thank you for what you're doing, by the way.
All right. Let's just segue back to the topic that we were on around a letter. And I think I've heard 3 suggestions that I think are good ones, 2 from Katie and 1 from Aurora. So tutoring in the shelters, ESL programming in the shelters, and then cultural competency capacity building as well. Are there any other things that we want to sort of add to that with 3, or does someone want to make a motion to write a letter covering those 3 items?
I just have a question about the cultural competency. Aurora, are you suggesting that would be, it sounds like it's already being done for the DOE reps who are working in the shelters, but are you suggesting maybe that this is something that would be helpful to have for like sort of DOE wide for any school that are getting STH kids?
Yeah, absolutely. I think any school that is receiving students, it would be really helpful for them to have.
Okay, yeah, I think that sounds very interesting, but I'm trying to get sort of specific on the ask. So the tutoring and the after school would be in the shelters. But what we're talking about with the cultural competency is something for teachers and staff in any DOE program that are dealing with kids coming from the shelters, or actually specifically the asylum seekers, I think we're saying, is that right?
I think it's specifically for the asylum seekers, I think the ask is for, I think a rational DOE staff member would have a little bit of understanding, kind of like what Iris was saying, that she directs her, but clearly, like 14 and 11 is a respectable age to leave children alone by themselves in any given situation. In fact, New York State doesn't even permit an age limit of when you can leave your child alone. It actually says it's up to the parent's discretion of when you can leave your child alone. So for example, like in that example where the shelter worker calls in on the parent, like that, we can't do anything about the shelter worker, but we can talk to the DOE staff about like what are some of the expectations in some of the countries that are coming in and into our neighborhoods and into their schools, and what are some of their normal cultural, I guess, but just what are some normalities in their culture, right? That might be slightly different to ours.
Yep.
I just want to clarify. So the cultural competency, that's for the shelter, right? Because oh, see, I thought that's
no, it's for the DOE.
Okay, because
I mean,
Iris
for the
was
shelter,
saying,
I would love to do it too.
Right, but Iris
but
was
that's a
saying
different
that
committee.
Right, but I think that what Iris was saying is that she and her staff are trained with this understanding, and all of these schools have student temporary housing coordinators. 2 of them have social workers, so they are fully trained in this area. I mean, yeah, I would think,
But what happens
maybe
when
a teacher,
like those 3 people? Let's say those 3 don't, but those 3 people aren't there on any given day. They're out at a training. Like I think that there should be more than 3 people in a building that have that awareness.
Right. I mean, I see what you're saying, and I agree
It
that
doesn't
that's
hurt either way.
important. It doesn't hurt at all. No, what I was trying to say was that, yes, it would be helpful for all teachers to have this kind of information, this training. We really actually don't know what kind of training they have. I mean, maybe so this is something that we could shoot an email to Iris and actually ask her, because these schools, this predates the asylum seekers. These schools have been dealing with this homeless crisis for at least 6 years now, since the hotels on the west side have been used as shelters. So a lot of work has been going on, but of course there's always turnover. But these principals, they've been here for a while. They're very good at what they've been doing to help these kids. So I was more concerned about what Iris was talking about in the shelter, where you had the shelter staff call ACES on a family that, the mother, it's the 14-year-old was watching the 11-year-old. So that's the kind of thing where I think is really important, because if you have these federal agencies that are there and they are not, this is not their usual business, right? It's not like a nonprofit provider is not there. So Acacia, maybe they would know better. They have social workers there. But when you're dealing with a federal agency that's taking over a shelter, because we literally do not have enough nonprofits to staff the shelters. That's why the federal agencies are there. So they really don't know. And I think that's kind of what's happening here. So Katie, if the letter is going to be about the shelters, about the tutoring in the shelters, then I think that we should add that to that, to be a part of that.
Gotcha.
And then maybe the DOE, that's a separate thing. I agree that, everyone can be trained in that, but all I'm saying is that I think it needs to be in a way that we're respectful to our principals who have been doing this work for 6 years, because they really have. And maybe ask Iris first, what kind of training they've gone through before we do sort of a separate letter to the DOE asking for that.
Yeah. So it sounds, yeah, okay. So it sounds like, Josephine, what you're saying is that for the letter that's about what's happening in the shelters, we ask for tutoring after school and cultural competency.
Right.
And then we also at the same time reach out to Iris and say, it sounds like it could be helpful for there to be some cultural competency training in the schools. Can you tell us sort of what the setup is or how we could suggest it in a way that could be incorporated in an effective manner? So we could find out from her what she thought about that. And then that could be a separate letter that we could discuss next time or something. Is that right?
Yeah, because what they do, I mean, I'll just give a little background, is that what Iris does is that at every school, even prior to there being an actual students and temporary housing coordinator, someone at the school was assigned to handle any issues that had to do with families living in shelters. So she would have a meeting once a year, and I've been to one of these meetings where you could be a teacher, anybody basically who volunteered from the school to do this work, and mostly it was teachers at that time, would come to the meeting and they would get sort of this training, an all-day training, and then they would go back to the school and they would share what they learned. So I'm sure that a lot of that work is still going on. That's why I just want to, follow up with her first to see, exactly what she's doing.
I think the way to structure the letter is asking how we can be most supportive to the teachers and the faculty and the staff in this, during this time where there is cultural awareness going on as well. That would be my idea around it, but that's just my idea.
Mm-hmm. One suggestion, Katie, is because I think Aurora is bringing up some valid points. Before we write anything into this letter or write another letter to like the school side, we re-engaged Kelly and or the principals to get a better understanding of what are they already doing. I don't remember who, but someone made the very valid point that this is something that schools have been working on. There has been training on it. It likely varies from school to school exactly what that's looked like. And Iris probably isn't, she's a very important part of that process, but she's not the only sort of way that this happens. And so my suggestion would be that we focus this letter on the shelters in the areas that we've named. And we follow up with DOE to better understand how are they working already to ensure that everyone receives the right level of cultural competency training to be set up to be successful with families who are new to the country and coming in pretty significant numbers. Is that okay with everybody, Katie, Aurora, Josephine?
Yeah, and I guess, Kit, I guess I'm just wondering, would it be helpful? Frankly, now that we're talking about this evening, could we invite Kelly or one of the principals or all the principals or whatever to one of our meetings and say, we'd love to just talk to you. And this goes to Aurora's point, right? Like, we want to talk to you about sort of what's happening with the asylum seeking families and how can we help you and advocate on your behalf? Like, what do you need from us? Like the same thing we asked Iris, but now we could actually ask the principals or Kelly.
Yeah, let's reach out and let's see if Kelly or a principal or principals want to join us. We've had a version of this conversation pretty recently with Kelly, which actually makes me more interested in hearing directly from the principals, or at least a principal from one of the schools that's been named by a couple of different folks at this time as a site that's welcomed a lot of students recently. But we can maybe take this offline and Jesse, we can figure out what's the right outreach to do to get someone February, March, April, sometime soon.
Okay, so then I guess my motion then is about a letter that is then about what's happening in the shelters and about getting the possibility of getting tutoring, after school programs, and some cultural competency there. Right.
I think with the slight edit that I heard specifically like language skills support. I don't know if that's
that's true.
After school, but I would love for us to call that out explicitly.
Yeah, yeah. So we would say like ESL tutoring and after school. Would that work, Kit? Or do you want to just sort of focus on, yeah, that's good.
All right, I'm not seeing any other hands, so I think someone needs to second that. Jumping the gun here. Thank you, Josephine. All in favor of a letter where we advocate for tutoring after school with English as a second language components, as well as cultural competency training for staff in shelters in our district, where many families are coming who are seeking refugee status in the last several months. Anyone opposed? Anyone present not eligible? And anyone abstaining? All right, I don't think I actually voted, but I'm also in favor. All right, thank you.
I'm happy to write it or to take a crack at drafting it.
I
Here.
can
Made
help
me feel
you if you
badly
want.
earlier, Kit.
Katie, if you'd like, I can help you draft it.
Lovely. That'd be awesome, Aurora. Okay, we'll be in touch.
Any other new business, or does anyone want to make a motion for us all to do something else with the rest of our night?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I'm gonna, there we go.
Alan,
Thank
you didn't want me
everybody.
to speak on the, I forgot, the public bathrooms?
Yeah, Kit. David's going to give a brief update as to what's happening in the neighborhood on public bathrooms. We had Julie Chow, who was here back in the springtime from CV5. They put together a number of CBs on this. I think if you want to check in, I think it's with Chelsea Land Use.
That's on Wednesday, yeah, on Wednesday.
She's going to be making a presentation. So David's been going, where'd you go?
Oh, I just turned off the stove. Sorry about that. Yeah, I've been going to
Take it away, David.
I'm going to try to do this quick. The hour's late and we all want to get out. It's a group of us from different community boards that have informally been meeting regarding public bathrooms. And as one of the ideas, which came up a while ago, but was years ago, subways used to have bathrooms, all the subways. Today, they just opened up 8 bathrooms. So that's good news. What the committee is working on right now is POPs, which is the plazas, the public plazas. So they're trying to get bathrooms in there. There's different requirements, different things, square footage. And since their POPs are up for renewal every 3 years, it can be done and staggered in the 3-year process. That's one thing that they're working on immediately. There's another idea which is in the works, but we don't know how this is going to get implemented. If a restaurant has open streets, they have to open, a restaurant in the street, like an open, then they have to allow the public to use the bathrooms. Now, either that can be voted on legislatively, or it can be done through an edict through the Department of Transportation. We haven't figured all that out, but that's what we're meeting about. I discovered them through my membership in ACES, and that's how I'm involved. So that's basically it in a nutshell. I said it very quickly because I know you all like ready to go to home. But ready to do something else. Does anyone have any questions?
Well done, David. Thank you.
All right. No, thank you all.
Thanks for going to all those meetings, David, and summarizing it both quickly and well. I think we are now actually ready to close out. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we will be writing 2 letters.
Good night.
Night.
Night. Thanks. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Lev, how are you? Is Daddy keeping you up late tonight? Or are you keeping Daddy up?
All right. Good night, buddy. Good night, Alan.
Good night.